Yo, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to the JDW Sports Network YouTube channel. This is Just a Rival podcast. We're back. We've had some, busy schedules, not able to get back in time to finally make an episode, but we're back. You got me, Aaron, aka Head of the Table, the Texas fan. You got my boy DJ AB Cool, the Colts fan, and my boy. I hope you're doing good right now.
Yeah, doing great. Doing amazing. As you know, the Colts just undergoed some really, really terrible news, and it was out of nowhere, unexpected, and it was heartbreaking.
Mm.
Owner Jim Irsay, as we know, has passed away now. And it's still saddened, even though it's like 2 weeks. It's 2 weeks past his death, and he was just one of the best owners. I would arguably say, if not the best owner in the NFL, in terms of caring for his community, supporting his community, just providing for so many players, so many people in Indianapolis, and to have just a moment of silence for him. I think we should have a moment of silence, but just after I read the Colts statement that happened for Jim Irsay.
Mm. All right.
We are devastated to announce our beloved owner and CEO, Jim Irsay, passed away peacefully in his sleep this afternoon. Jim's dedication and passion for the Indianapolis Colts, in addition to his generosity, commitment to the community, and most importantly, his love for his family, were unsurpassed. Our deepest sympathies go to his daughters, Carly Irsay Gordon, Casey Foyt, Kaylin Jackson, and his entire family as we grieve for them. With them. Some of Jim's fondest memories came from his youth working training camps in Baltimore and growing relationships with players, coaches, and staff, whom he considers his extended family. He worked in every department before he was named the youngest general manager in team history in 1984. When the Colts arrived in Indianapolis after he took sole ownership in 1997, he led the Colts to a long series of division titles and brought the city its first Super Bowl championship. Jim's love and appreciation for the NFL, in addition to its history, tradition, and principles, influenced him to become a steward of the game throughout his 50-plus years in the league. Jim's generosity can be felt all over Indianapolis, the state of Indiana, and the country. He made philanthropy a daily endeavor. He never hesitated to help countless organizations and individuals live better lives. Music was one of Jim's passions, and the ability to share his band and collections with millions of people across the world brought him tremendous joy. Simply put, he wanted to make the world a better place, and that philosophy never wavered. Jim will be deeply missed by his family, the Colts organization, and fans everywhere, but we remain inspired by his caring and unique spirit. That was the letter of the Colts for Jim Irsay. Now we will have a brief moment of silence. All right, and that was it for the brief moment of silence. We're honoring, Jim Irsay and his legacy. And Aaron, I want to hear some of your thoughts, man. You're a Texans fan, but what do
Mm.
you think of the recent passing of Jim Irsay?
Honestly, coming from a Texas fan, I'm a big fan of Pat McAfee. I saw how torn he was on his show because he's had Jim Irsay on his show before. So and me, I grew up watching the Colts. Me, I was a big Peyton Manning fan, big on Reggie Wayne. So of course I used to play, on the old school Maddens as the Colts. Just having fun. But it all stems down to who was the reason that this team was who they are, which is the owner Jim Irsay. With the Super Bowl championships, with the playoffs, with the team that the Colts are, with just that tough mentality. Because out of, like I say every time, out of all the teams in our division, it's always the Colts that have that tough mentality against us. We always have great games together, and honestly, it stems from the owner himself because of how determined he was to keep winning, to keep moving forward. Of course, there was mistakes here and there from hires to just player things, but when it comes down to the owner signifies who the team is based on him. And honestly, when it came to Jim Irsay, the Colts honestly or recognized the way he lived his life with just being bold, with being out there, with being eager to win. And honestly, that's why when I was a kid, I was big on the Colts because it's just how that culture was. And eventually, I found myself with the Texans, but I still always have respect for the Colts because of how they've always been in my life growing up.
Yeah, no, definitely. And just to go along with that, just Jim Irsay, just such a great owner, such a caring owner for this league and organization. He's just done so much for the Colts, and cannot be more thankful for such a great owner. Now it has been confirmed that his sister or his daughters, excuse
Mm.
me, his daughters, three daughters, will now be taking over the organization as owners. But Jim Irsay will deeply be remembered as one of the best owners in history for
Oh,
the NFL. He's done so much, just provided so much time, so much of his personality is just he's developed and just been able to honor the NFL and just provide so much for his communities, and we cannot be more honorable for him. But that was a kind of just a dedication for
mhm.
Jim Irsay, and most definitely he's just an excellent owner.
Oh yeah.
But more in regards to the Colts, his daughters are going to be taking over as the
Mhm.
owners for the Colts. And as far as more Colts news, mini camp and OTAs, OTA specifically has started already, and we've gotten
Mhm.
more clarification and news. According to James Boyd, we had Anthony Richardson having a slip up, throwing an interception to Liam Anderson, a young corner right here. And, Anthony Richardson throwing that interception, there was, let me just say, Aaron, there were a lot of overreactions.
Yeah.
Okay. Like right off the bat, you have people saying Anthony Richardson is a bust. I thought he improved. I thought he trained with Josh Allen, even though we're not inherently there yet.
Mhm.
You had so many claims regarding the fans, just so many overreactions, and even other podcasts starting to start videos about it. And I wanted to bring it up in this podcast. What are your thoughts on OTAs, mini camp, and training camp in terms of those overreactions of what we can think of quarterbacks? I'm sure CJ Stroud has his share of mistakes in
Mhm.
training camp, preseason, OTAs, mini camp. What are your thoughts on that and how impactful those things really are?
Yeah, no, because a couple weeks ago, or even I think it was last week, I seen the news of Anthony Richardson that he was struggling a bit in OTAs. But honestly, with me in OTAs, like I don't take OTAs as an overreaction. I see it as just they're getting their rust off. Everybody's getting their rust off of
Yeah.
being in this off season. Like this off season is so long when it comes to the NFL. So when players come back, OTAs, their body's still trying to function. Of course,
Mm.
throughout the off season they're working out, keeping their body healthy, keeping it strong for this upcoming season. But when it comes to the practices, the joint practices with every single position player that is there, of course they're gonna have that rust of either overthrowing or missing a catch or just slipping up. So to me, OTAs are just an overreaction. Like it's the same way over here with the Texans because throughout these few weeks of OTAs, CJ Stroud was actually not throwing at all because he was still dealing with a slight pectoral muscle strain that he dealt with like throughout the NFL season last year, and we believe
Wow.
it came after the
Yeah.
Ravens game. Yeah, we believe it came after the Ravens game because he had to be benched that game, and it was because of his pectoral muscle. And so everybody was overreacting, and not even like a couple of days later after everybody was overreacting, CJ Stroud is over here at the U of H basketball stadium shooting basketballs and all that, and everybody's just like, "Oh, the pectoral muscle don't look bad right now." So it's like stop overreacting to little things, especially in OTAs. It's OTAs. Nobody has to do too much in OTAs. Everybody's gonna show who they are when training camp comes, when the mini camp drills happen. So right now in June, it's honestly just a rough draft, as in like we're gonna start here and see where we need to clean up, and then go into training camp of what we're gonna do and what we're gonna accomplish.
No, yeah, most definitely. And I mean, like you said, CJ Stroud had to miss some time, but like you
Mm.
said, OTAs, they are important to an extent, but they're
Yeah,
important for the players more than the fans. They're
yeah, yeah.
important for the players rather than the media. I think
Mhm.
that is the correction, right? The auto correction that
Yeah.
people should come into these, type of situations with OTAs, minicamp, training camp. Those are all for players to kind of shake off that rust, even preseason, right? Until week one starts,
Mhm.
that is when you get your general philosophy. But of course, there's a quarterback battle going on in the Colts. It is between Daniel Jones and Anthony Richardson for that starting job. And of course, we all know, right? Like it's all for that starting job, right? Whoever
Yeah.
wins it, whoever wants it more is going to get it. And right now, Daniel Jones has been doing pretty good, right? He hasn't been doing that
Mhm.
bad. It's been some excellent throws to Alec Pierce, to Mo Ali Cox, right? Some really good throws, and more of that coming from like James Boyd stating more facts on like Daniel Jones has been doing pretty solid. right? Not really turning over the football. Anthony Richardson only once. That was before, right, the shoulder injury, and that is what I'm going to bring up next. Is Anthony Richardson had aggravated the shoulder that he injured in Week 5 against the Tennessee Titans. So, coming back to that again, he re-aggravated it, and again, to kind of see that re-aggravation to his shoulder, it's pretty scary for some Colts fans. But also, you got to realize, to some Colts fans, it's also like, well, we still got Daniel Jones. Some Colts fans are like on the boat of Daniel Jones. Some Colts fans are probably in the boat of Anthony Richardson. But right now, we are starting to see that, according to Jay Fowler of ESPN, Anthony Richardson's shoulder should be fully expected to be ready to go for a training camp. That is Jay Fowler of ESPN. So that is some exciting news coming out of ESPN right there, is that Anthony Richardson should be able to go for training camp to still be able to compete for the starting quarterback position. So again, I don't know, Aaron, what are some of your thoughts, from an outsider's perspective, of how this QB battle could go between Richardson and Jones?
Honestly, the way I see it is like how I've always thought about it. Is I've always kept in mind on how the Colts are doing in the offseason compared to Jaguars or Titans. Like, to me, they're in the trash. But with the Colts, when it comes to Daniel Jones, he's honestly a player. He's honestly one of those type of players where they came from a trash organization, a trash team.
Yeah.
They want to show out who they really are. They want to, especially with the Colts being just a culture that wants to win, not know we're gonna stay who we are, like the Giants. Like, they've always just been in poverty. You've never seen the Giants do anything since the Eli Manning days. So for Daniel Jones, it's honestly just he's going to be here. He's going to fight for that position. If he wins the position, then it's not going to be it won't be too much of a surprise, I feel, because Daniel Jones is a pretty, more better than average quarterback, and that's what I believe in. With Anthony Richardson, if he's got to heal that injury more, if he's got to miss, say, week 1, he can miss week 1, because no matter what, Daniel Jones is still going to get the starting reps in training camp, in the mini camp drills. Both of them are going to get their share of reps of the starters, reps of the backups. So that's what helps it. And honestly, it's pretty much not wanting to rush Anthony Richardson back too fast. Of course, people are falling off of him from the Colts fans' perspective, but honestly, it's just an injury that everybody's got to deal with every single year, no matter what player they are. So honestly, it's not too much of an overreaction, but if you got to give the ball to Daniel Jones, to me, as a Texas fan, I believe in him to show up and show out what he's got to do for the team to win.
Yeah, I mean, shoot, he definitely has to show out, and whoever wins that quarterback competition, we at least want someone solid, right? The Colts organization wants someone solid to represent the Colts organization, like a really good quarterback like Daniel Jones or Anthony Richardson. We shall see who wins the job, but definitely a sign of a shoulder injury is concerning for Colts fans, or even the organization on its own, right? The players, the staff, right? It's concerning because you do not want your quarterback to go down. Now, obviously, this season, if Richardson goes down, you have Jones, right? If Jones gets a starting job, he goes down, you have Richardson. So again, there's it goes both ways, right?
Yeah.
If one gets hurt, you still have the other, right? So we shall see what happens in terms of that case. But we have Riley Leonard on third stringer, but again, he's just a rookie from Notre Dame. Again, he is good, but he's still developing, still getting there, still finding himself along the line. So again, we shall see what happens there. But on top of Colts news, that should be the top of the line right now is Richardson planning to return for training camp. But in terms of Houston, though, Birdie did tell me that there was a huge signing, huge signing for the Houston Texans that I may or may not hate on, but go ahead.
Man, honestly, yesterday morning, I had a long night Saturday night. I woke up yesterday morning, I just always I just always hop on Twitter, just seeing hey, any news that comes out, OTAs, any drills, and I don't know where I just see a tweet. I forgot who tweeted it, but it was just one tweet that everybody didn't believe at first, and it said mutual interest of the running back that just got released, from the Browns. Well, he tested free agency. The four-time Pro Bowler Nick Chubb. He dealt with an injury that honestly was the reason why they let him test free agency. So, and we're finally getting into June, so it's kind of like, how is he not on the team yet? So the mutual interest, it was like one of those where it's like you believe it, but then you don't believe that he's gonna come over. And as the day went by yesterday, rumors just kept flowing and flowing. Adam Schefter was throwing stuff out saying that if the physical if his physical passes, he's going to sign with Texans for a deal. And wouldn't you know it, today while I'm at work at around 5 o'clock, they all reported his physical passed. He signed a 1 year, $2 million deal with us, and to me, I'm excited because having two Pro Bowl running backs like Joe Mixon, Nick Chubb, that's just a problem for a lot of teams in this league. Like I thought, I loved Gibbs and Montgomery from the Lions, but right now I love Mixon and Nick Chubb because
Yeah.
that's just that 1-2 power horse, like ready and.
Don't, yeah, no, exactly. And don't even forget about Damian Pierce either.
Oh yeah, yeah. And
Yeah.
we just drafted a rookie as well, Woody Marks from USC. So when it comes to training camp, when it comes to this offseason,
Yeah.
Woody Marks and Damian Pierce are going to fight each other for that running back 3 position. A lot of people are hesitant; they don't know what Damian Pierce's position is going to be. A lot of people believe he might get traded, he might get cut. Who knows?
Yeah.
It's the same for somebody like John Mechie on a wide receiver role. But honestly, this running back room, like I've never been so excited for this, like a running back room since we've had Arian Foster and my boy Tate, Ben Tate.
Yeah, no, definitely. And even when it comes down to that, right? Like
Mm.
that's such a really great signing for the Houston Texans, not just for their offense, but again, now you have 2 running backs you have to worry about. And a running back duo like that is very dangerous, right? And you have Damian Pierce, of course, at running back 3, but he's battling for that 3rd position. I think he'll get it, or he'll end up getting traded or trying to go elsewhere because he needs, obviously Damian Pierce knows his value. He's probably going to want more money. And I think they want to keep Nick Chubb and Joe Mixon as a duo together. But yeah, that offense looking more dangerous, but the offensive line, that's still hopefully not an issue. If it is an issue, then the running game is not going to be able to get going, and that's just not a great thing. I mean, I think Nick Chubb and Joe Mixon have the power to, maneuver and get some yards, but it's just going to be a hassle if that O-line cannot be productive. But I think there's potential, especially with that new offensive coordinator that the Texans got, but really excellent news for the Houston Texans.
Well, and the other thing with our offensive line, what I barely found out like about 2 days ago, or I think it was 2 days ago, our veteran offensive lineman that everybody knows that we signed this offseason, Trent Brown, who came from New England. He's a great veteran offensive tackle. Actually, right now in OTAs, he's not even practicing. He's actually helping the offensive line learn schemes, learn moves. He's training them as a coach, which somebody like before us when we had Laramie Tunzel wouldn't have done that. But Trent Brown, he's at OTAs acting as if he's the offensive line coach, which is just great for a veteran like him. Like he could easily be practicing, but no, he's not putting on his uniform or nothing. He's helping the young guys, the veteran guys, if they need a little bit extra help. And this is what's boosting our confidence with this offensive line, because we're switching out guys, seeing what formations look good with different offensive linemen from guard to tackle, and it's what's bringing our positivity up for this offensive line.
No, yeah, most definitely. And I mean, that offensive line already, I mean, like you were saying, right? You got a guy like Trent Brown in order to help out that offensive line, and that's exactly what he's doing, right? You look at the O-line, it's not entirely bad, but of course, like the Texans offensive line, just they need to be at least solid, at least get in that top, that middle of the pack area. And that's what the Texans O-line needs to do, because the offensive line, like you said, Trent Brown, who's just an amazing offensive line, a veteran, right? Came from New England. He's 32, of course. Only has a few years left in him. But again, he's an amazing, amazing tackle. And I have no doubt that he's going to be able to help out the Houston Texans with that offensive line. Like you were saying, like, Laramie Tunzel wouldn't have done that. That's something that Trent Brown is able to do, and it's really excellent for him.
With our offensive line, what's great about it is we got great veterans like Cam Robinson, we got Trent Brown, we got Titus Howard, we got all these guys, and I've already spilled my scheme for who I want on my offensive line, from Cam Robinson at left tackle, our rookie Jim Irsay at left guard, Jarrett Patterson center, right guard Titus Howard, right tackle Blake, our young sophomore coming up, Blake Fisher. So for me, like right now, it's still under D'Amico and our OC Nick Cayley. It's it's up to their decision on who they want on this offensive line starting. But honestly, for me, I have so much optimism, and I'm just ready for training camp to start, because I'm definitely going to go, especially with Nick Chubb being in this training camp.
Yeah, no, most definitely, like you were saying. And Nick Chubb being in the training camp, that's going to make it even a lot more fun, right? Especially for the defense of the Texans. Right now, they're going to get more tested by another running back. You have Joe Mixon, Nick Chubb. She's going to be a lot of, running power to deal with right there. And, just excellent, right? Really good news for the Texans. And, is there any other news, though, for the Houston Texans that has occurred as of recently?
Not much. It's just mainly been of what I've said so far. Nothing else. Of course, there's those rumors of like we're bringing people in, working them out, just seeing how they look. People from the XFL actually, and just going off, going off of who looks good. If we want to sign them, if we want to keep somebody or cut somebody. But training camp's coming up soon. They haven't released schedules for training camp, but I'll be ready for when they're released.
Yeah, and I mean, like you were saying, now the Texans, we'll see what goes on right there. And the Colts, probably just one last news. The Bengals have released linebacker Jermaine Pratt.
Oh, I seen,
You know what that means? That means that the Colts can sign the veteran linebacker and pair him up with Zaire Franklin. Pairing up in that group. And, a guy that's worked with Lou Anarumo for a while now, been about more than five plus years for Jermaine Pratt, a veteran captain linebacker, a true leader in that locker room. And I think we have a leader in Zaire, having two leaders like Jermaine Pratt and Zaire, hoping not bumping heads. But of course, Jermaine Pratt, a really good linebacker, proven all pro, right? To bring him over would mean a lot for the Indianapolis Colts. And I think they will. I think hopefully that should be the last move, but we shall see, because again, there haven't been any rumors, anything from like, a lot of the Colts media as well. There hasn't been really anything in regards to that, but only the fact that he's got it released. He shall choose where he wants to go, but I think he's going to get paired up with Lou Anarumo once more. But we shall keep you guys updated with that. Anyways, that was me, DJ Be Cool. That was Aaron. You can follow us in our socials below. It took a while for an episode to come out, but we are here during the summer, the heating summer of 2025. We will see you guys later. Please have a good rest of your week. And always remember to join the Rivals.